Hello, and welcome to the Parents Engage, the podcast. I am Coach Jay, where we are here today to help parents and caregivers and equip them with the resources and tools that they need to be involved in their children's education. Today, we are so excited to have a very inspiring first pilot episode for you guys. I am excited to be joined with some of our youth interns as well as our guest for today. We'll get to him in a second. But before we get started, I would like to introduce you all to our youth interns. So you all can go and say your name and how old you are.
Hi, I'm Maria and I'm 21 years old.
Hi, I'm Demi and I'm 17 years old.
Hi, I'm Amaya and I'm 18.
Awesome. So we're really excited to have these beautiful young ladies with us today. So I would love to introduce our guests. Lamont Raymond Williams, a candidate for the District 9 seat on the Chicago Public Schools elected school board. Lamont grew up in the Ashburn and Auburn Gresham neighborhoods. He is a CPS alum. He is a licensed attorney currently serving as the Chief of Staff and General Counsel to Cook County Commissioner Bill Lowry. In his spare time, he is a youth basketball coach and active mentor to youth, high school, college, and law students. He has previous board experience at several institutions, including his alma mater, Upper Iowa University. Lamont believes our children deserve better, which for him looks like reducing the unacceptable CPS budget deficit of over $505 million, developing strategies to raise revenue and cut expenses, supporting increased resources for diverse learners, increasing busing for K through 8th grade students, and reviewing and eliminating policies that negatively impact our students, teachers, and schools. Did I miss anything?
That sounds about right.
Yeah? All right. Thank you so much, Lamont. It's so good to have you. Everybody give me a round of applause. Thank you for being here today.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So we do want to start off with a little bit of an icebreaker. Before we get into the conversation, we like to start off with something fun, right? So if you could describe your campaign in one word, what would it be?
Independent.
Period. I-N-D. Yeah,
Independent. That's probably the best word. I'm not being backed by any special interest groups. I'm not taking money from certain groups that we all see in the news that are fighting, trying to pay for spots on the board. I'm trying to be responsible to our students, to the parents, to the community. So I'm running this thing independent.
That's just that's just what I saying. Boosie said it, man. Okay, I'm sorry, but no, we love that. We love an independent candidate just because we know that your intentions are true, your campaign is true, and that's what we need going forward. Because a lot of people have been bought.
Yes.
But we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. All right, Marie, you got another question for us?
Yeah, so who was your biggest inspiration growing up and how did they influence your perspective on education?
Biggest inspiration. It's a tie. It's two women. It's either my grandmother or my mom. I'm gonna talk about my mom because my mom recently, in like the last couple of years, she went back to school and got her bachelor's degree in nursing.
Okay.
But my entire life, she always pushed that we would go to school, do our best. And she made sacrifices as a single parent, driving us all over the city of Chicago and making sure she just instilled that the best path forward for us was education. And so once we all, all of her kids graduated high school, myself, I went to college, my sisters went to college, I went to law school. We all got, our degrees. We all did exactly what she wanted us to do. And so she got to a point where she said, well, I kept telling you all to do it, so now I have to do it. So my mom's been a nurse my whole life. But she never finished her bachelor's degree. I think she only had an associate's degree at the time. So she went back to school, and about 2-3 years ago, she finished her degree. And I think I was more proud watching her walk across the stage than I was anytime I walked across the stage.
That's amazing.
Look, y'all not gonna get me to tear up on this podcast, but no, she is my inspiration for education.
Any other guests want to answer that question?
I would say that my dad it's like my biggest influence. As growing up, as a young child, my dad has always pushed me to be to show perseverance, more so like no matter what, just know that, well, coming from like a faithful background, as long as I trust in God and I put him first, that I can do anything. And that's what I've always done to overcome anything. And that's how I've showed my perseverance. And also a thing that my dad has taught with the 5 P's, which are proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I'll always take that with me. And that's something I will never forget. That's one of the most important things that my dad has definitely taught me.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
I'm gonna steal that. I'm about to get that from you.
Yeah.
I'd say, well, my grandmother was a mixture of both. She gave me the faithful background as well as my grandmother had her associates in nursing. And she always taught me and told me like to be able to stand on my own and to be able to have my own education. She always told me that education is something that nobody could ever take from you. Because once you know something, you may forget it, but if you are reminded, then you're reminded. It's not like somebody can just take your education. And so that's always been something that has inspired me to continue going.
Absolutely. That's really beautiful because I just think about for me, it was always my uncle. From a very beginning of my childhood, he always encouraged me to go to college. I'm talking about in elementary school. He's like, you're going to college, right? And I never really understood what that meant until I got into high school and I went on my first college tour and I was amazed at just about the different experiences and opportunities that college offers. So when I got to college, I took that and ran with it. I got involved with a lot of different things. And then even after I graduated with my bachelor's, she was like, okay, so what's next? And so I went back and I got my master's degree and now he's coming at me again, like, okay, what's next? So I will be on track to getting a PhD. We'll see that when it happens. Thank you. By the grace and glory of God. When that happens, it happens, okay? But I think the one thing that you mentioned is that school is really important because knowledge is power. And when you have knowledge, it's something that can't be taken away from you. So I really appreciate you all. That was awesome. Good. Okay, so now we're gonna go into like our main topic session, right? So this is where we're really gonna get to know you. You can ask them questions and then we'll be asking you some questions too, okay? So we'll talk about, why you decided, what's your vision for the CPSC, your passions, and then if you were elected, how do you see parents and communities becoming more involved? Okay. Demi, you want to start us off with our first question?
Okay, yeah. So Lamont, as a candidate for the school board, what do you believe is so important for parents to be engaged in their children's education?
That's an excellent question. So I believe that you have probably the top 3 stakeholders in education. You have your teachers, obviously you have the students, because everything that we're doing is for y'all. And we definitely keep y'all in mind because none of you all, except for the ones that are over 18, none of you all, for most CPS students, they're not able to vote for any of this stuff. So we got to make sure we're making the best decisions for you. But then you have the parents. And to your question, parents need to be involved because nobody knows their kids better than parents. I'm not going to sit there and argue with the parent about what's best for their child. They live with these kids every day. Now, I don't have children yet. I have a lot of nieces and nephews. And even then, I don't argue with their parents about it. I say, here's your child, take them back. But whatever they tell me, hey, my son's doing this in school, they need help. My daughter's doing this in school. She needs help. We have to really put that at the forefront because our parents are going to be the first line of communication, along with the students who tell us what's going on in our school. And one of the things that we have to do on the board is we have to make sure we keep those lines of communication open. We cannot be a board that's filled with people from special interests. They're hearing their talking points from, people cutting checks. Like, oh, make the students do this, make the students do that. That doesn't serve you all. I want you all to feel like, hey, that's Lamont, my board representative. I'm going to go talk to him. And my parents are going to go talk to him. He's going to do something about it.
Okay, building off of that, what changes do you want to see in District 9 to better support families and students?
Equitable funding. So I did a form in Chicago State. I did a form at the Aquarama. I did a form. If there was a form talking about students, talking about resourcing our students, talking about this campaign, I was there. And one of the things that I want to see is equity, true equity in the 9th district. Right now, the 9th district has 95 schools and only 3 of them, I think it's 3, maybe it's 4, but I want to say it's only 3 of them. Only 3 of our schools are considered exemplary. which means they're in the top 5% of the state. And it's no coincidence that those 3 exemplary schools are all located in a specific part of our district, right? They're all in the Mount Greenwood, Beverly area. That means the other 92 schools that are not in those areas are either adequate or barely hanging on, or in the case of 5 of our schools, we have 5 schools that are considered intensive. That means they're in the bottom 5% of the entire state. And I can tell you, all of those schools are in areas where the population is mainly, if not all, Black and working class. So that's like what I want to see improve in the 9th district is making sure that students, I don't care where you live in the 9th district, whether it's Englewood, Roseland, Pullman, Auburn Gresham, Washington Heights, Ashburn, or Mount Greenwood, Beverly Morgan Park, they all have access to a quality world-class education. And it's not just education, it's access to vocational education if they want it, access to the arts, music, sports, and just all the things that we know when you're in like the Gold Coast and all these other rich areas of the city, they have full access to. Our students deserve it here in the 9th district as well.
Hey, my question is, do you personally know any diverse learners?
Yes, I know several. As a matter of fact, I spoke a little bit about my nephews, but my own siblings were diverse learners. And so growing up as a student, you don't know the terminology, diverse learners. I didn't know that about my own siblings. I just knew that my brothers and sisters needed extra help here and there with their subject. And I knew that they took other classes that I didn't take. So growing up, you didn't really know that. But once I became an adult and I started really investing my time in the students, I started mentoring and tutoring, I realized, yes, we do have students with special needs. We do have diverse learning. We have kids who are geniuses, but they just learned it. And what I think is incumbent on us as board members is making sure we give those students and every student at CPS the opportunity to tap into that genius. Just because you learn different, just because you're a diverse learner, doesn't mean you should receive any less of an educational opportunity as the next child.
Okay, so my next question that ties into that is, how do you plan on training staff to work with children who have severe and profound learning disabilities?
That is excellent. So this all comes back down to not just the training, because the board, we're not responsible for the training. We're responsible for setting the policy for the training. And so what I would do is ensure that we're meeting the best practices across the nation. I want to talk to those subject matter experts, those folks who do this for a living, bring them into Chicago and show us what's the best way to do it. Now, what I am responsible for is making sure that we have the resources and the funding to do it. And that is something that I take a lot, I take into consideration. That's the stuff that keeps me up at night, frankly, because right now, CPS is $500 million in debt and rising. So when we want to make sure that we are supplying these resources for our students, we got to make sure that 1, we get out of this budget deficit, and 2, that we're being responsible how we're spending the money. So to answer your question a little bit, to go a little bit deeper to your question, right now we get federal funding for students with disabilities, diverse learners, special needs students. We get it under 2 federal acts, the Every Student Succeeds Act and also the Individual with Disability and Education Act. What I want to do, and I do this every February in my 9 to 5 as Chief of Staff for Commissioner Bill Lowry, we go to Washington, D.C. every February, and I literally march up and down Capitol Hill talking to all of our congressmen, from Jonathan Jackson to Danny Davis to Robin, you name it. I'm in their office talking to them. They probably get sick of hearing us come through the door. But because of those 2 acts I just named, they're federal acts. That means we get federal money for them. So what I want to do in this CPS role is leverage those relationships that I've built over the past 6 years, go back to Washington and say, we need more help. City of Chicago is the 3rd largest school district. We need y'all to invest more.
Okay.
Just give me my money. Literally, just give us our money. Okay. So how much would you like to decrease the budget deficit? And how would you do that?
Listen, in a perfect world, I want to zero it out so we have a balanced budget. I don't want any of you all, and I don't want any of your friends and family who are current CPS students to have to go back to school with a budget deficit hanging over your head. Because if we have a budget deficit, you know what that tells me? We already started behind the 8 ball. We already under-resourced and underfunded. So how would I do it? Well, I'm the only candidate in this race. Well, let me go back, not just saying I'm the only candidate, I'm the only independent candidate in this race who's talking about solutions. So you're not gonna get a bunch of talking points from me. You're gonna get actual policy solutions. And I have two ways that I want to address the budget deficit. First, we need to demand from Illinois and from our federal Congress to do what's right by our students. Illinois has a state lottery of net proceeds that are supposed to go to public education. As I talk to you wonderful ladies right now, we don't get all those net proceeds from the state lottery. As a matter of fact, there are 10 carve-outs under Illinois law that divert money from the Common Education Fund to what they call special projects that have nothing to do with our children's public education. So the first thing I want to do is lobby our state to close those loops. We close those loops, that's more funding going towards public education throughout the state, specifically CPS, we erase the budget deficit. Second thing is, as the only candidate in this race that has actual legal and governmental experience working on budget deficits and working on complex government budgets, I can tell you now, this budget is full of waste, this budget is full of bloat, we have bad contracts, we have all kinds of things that are just wasting money. And you're gonna hear a lot of people say, oh, the taxpayer. Yes, we are overburdening the taxpayers, but more importantly, every time those taxpayers have to waste money on stuff that we don't need or bad contracts, it directly affects you all. It affects the students. So while I do, and I make this a very big point of my campaign to keep the taxpayer in mind, I keep you all in mind, because for every dollar we waste, that's a dollar that didn't go to you all. So what I want to do is I want to do an audit of the current budget, see what bad contracts we have that are coming up that we can terminate. I want to get rid of some of these facilities that we're paying millions of dollars of, millions that we should be investing into you ladies and other students, that we are literally just wasting on empty facilities that we haven't used in over 10 years. Right now, there's over 30 unused schools and facilities that CPS pays millions of dollars just to keep them empty. 14 of those are in the 9th district.
Wow.
So we gotta get rid of it. Because that's money that we can that's money that we can both make off selling those properties off to somebody else, and then money that we save by not having them as an expense on our budget every year. So, yeah. Think of it like this: if you all had a bill and you knew, man, every month I gotta pay this bill and I'm paying millions and millions of dollars, wouldn't you all be in favor of somebody that said, you know, I looked at your bills, I looked at what you're paying, and actually we gonna cut this off and you all don't have to throw millions of dollars away every year. That's money you get to save.
Hallelujah.
Let's read it. Everybody bands.
Yes, I'm gonna be dancing.
I'm talking about, we talking about saving millions.
Yeah, we love that.
Okay, my question was, seeing how intentional you are about students and particularly Black students knowing their rights, how do you feel about police officers inside of public high schools that are mainly inside of Black communities?
Yeah, so they call them SROs. Was it resource officers, special resource officers? So how I feel about it is I don't think that they should do that. But I am cognizant, I am aware that a one size fits all policy does not work. Like I said, the 9th district is the 95 school. So what I would like to do, and what I've been very consistent on as far as my stance on them, is personally, I don't think they should be. City of Chicago, CPS has rolled out what they call the whole school safety plan. I'm in favor of it. I think we need to lean into it. It talks about more student and parent engagement, more local school council engagement. I think it's a good plan. It has good recommendations. But having talked to families all over my district, what I have found out is that parents and local school councils, they want to have the ability on a case-by-case basis to keep those officers if they think it's necessary. And again, what I say earlier, I'm not going to argue with parents when they tell me what they think is best for their kids. I'm not going to argue with the teachers in the facility when they say, hey, this is a real problem that our specific school faces. Instead of me trying to pitch an argument with who knows best, I want to collaborate with them. So if I'm hearing that, I have to be mindful of that. It's not just what I want, it's what the district wants, it's what's in the best interest for you.
So what is your ideal replacement for that?
My ideal replacement would be for each of my 95 schools, through the parents, the teachers, the local school councils, the faculty, for me to have that conversation. And some people might say, well, that's a little naive, but it's not hard having conversations with 95 different schools. As a matter of fact, as chief of staff and general counsel, I speak with different and diverse groups and organizations and stakeholders throughout all Cook County, all day, every day for my job. And I'm the only candidate in this race that's got that experience. Anybody else tell you that, they lie. And so doing that, having those conversations, I want to do it on a case by case basis so that they at least feel heard, first of all, that's important. And two, that really helps me weigh in when I go to the rest of the board and say, listen, if we're gonna put an overall policy regarding these resource officers, let me tell you what the 95 different schools in the 9th district said. Because I don't want to just go there and say, let me vote on this item and I never once spoke to you all. That's unfair to you all, and that's not me doing my job.
So what is your vision for CPS in 5 years?
So CPS is projected to have a $500 million budget deficit for the next 5 years to 2030. My overall goal for CPS is one, not to have that budget deficit in the next 5 years. That means we're gonna have to roll our sleeves up and work and make sure that we're going out and getting that revenue that's owed to us, and also creating new creative revenue sources. So that's not an issue. But I think overall my vision for CPS is I want to leave it a lot better than how we found it. I mean, right now students are missing out on critical programming, critical resources. I mean, they're having issues with busing, with lunch, with food, with extracurricular activities. That's unacceptable. And so I would like to say in the next 5 years, we've restored all of those things, that students are worried about what students should be worried about in high school. You know, am I doing well in this class? You know, do I get to sit next to the person I like? Not whether or not my school roof is going to cave in because it hasn't been funded in the last 5 years, or not whether or not I can actually get to school, or more importantly, whether or not my school is still open. So I want to make sure in the next 5 years, those are not the concerns that students have, because you already have enough on y'all plate. Y'all ain't got to worry about this. Or you shouldn't have to worry about this. So the moratorium, I think it was extended to 2026. And this just came up in another forum I was in, and I said again, I'm not in favor of closing schools. And so I'm not in favor of anything that's going to negatively impact our students. But at the same time, you have to be pragmatic and realistic on how we approach this. So what I've been suggesting is for schools that are, so they want to close schools because they're saying they're underpopulated and they don't have the resources to keep them open, and they can't justify it because a school that's built for like 1,000, 2,000 kids only has 250. Like Harlan High School and Julian High School only have 250 kids that attend each of those schools. But those schools are built to house thousands. So what I proposed was, let's make these schools, these local schools, let's make them community sites again. And we have days and hours of operation where the schools are not operating as schools. I mean, kids are in school from 8 to maybe 3 o'clock Monday through Friday. You have the weekends, you have at night, where we could be renting out space for these different community organizations that can help us offset the cost of some of these underpopulated schools. On top of that, once you start bringing in these vetted, and let me stress vetted, because we're not just letting anybody in. You know, we're gonna make sure they're the right fit. But once you let these folks in, now it's not just Julian High School or Harlan or any of these other schools that are underpopulated. It's now a community space. Now the community is invested in keeping this place open, because my child goes there for school, my grandma goes there for her organization, my parents go there for their organization, the little brother's there for his organization. Now it's the community invested site rather than just a school. And I think we need to take approaches like that before we just start saying, hey, this school's underpopulated, let's cut it, let's close it.
Do you all have any other questions?
Do you think preschool should be more accessible for all students?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, how are you going to make that?
Again, all of our problems here, and that's a wonderful question, by the way, all of our problems at CPS start with a lack of funding, start with the budget deficit. So before I can address any issue, I gotta fix the budget. And it's not just me, it's every member on that board. But one of the things I find myself, even with my opponents, I find myself educating these same folks who want these positions, letting them know, hey, it's nice that you're standing on this, it's nice that whatever group is telling you to say this, but you all know No matter what programs we plan on rolling out, if we don't finance them, if we don't put enough resources behind them, if we don't have the money, then all we're doing is talking. But more importantly, all we're doing is failing you all. So to your question about pre-K, to all of these different questions about programming, we've got to fix the budget issues at CPS first. Once we have that fixed, I'm talking there. What do we need? What are we trying to do? What, like, you know, you want this program? Fine, we got the money to do it. You want pre-K? I want it too. Kids that start learning earlier are more likely to be successful. Let's do it. But I got to make sure that I'm making the district, putting it on the right path financially first.
If I may add a comment to that. So I am the parent community organizer here, and I talk to parents a lot, and I love that question. One, I do understand that there may be a funding gap, right? There is also a lack of knowledge gap and a lack of access gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of one, parents feeling that it's necessary for their children to start at pre-K, because we have a lot of parents who their kids don't start till first grade, so they don't put them in pre-K, don't put them in kindergarten, so they're already kind of behind with one, socialization, or even some of the fundamental skills that children learn in pre-K and kindergarten, right? So I think it's more about, you know, how do we create a community-based type of initiative or policy that advocates for parents making sure their children are involved in pre-K, because as a parent, I can choose not to put I'm not a parent. I'm not a parent. I always say that because, yeah, I'm not a parent. So I'm only talking about from the experiences and things that I've heard from other people, right? So just knowing that, like, yeah, like, oh, we could put all this funding into this program, but then if people aren't showing up, it's like, okay, how are we even proving that this is something that people want if nobody's showing up to the program?
So what I would say to that is, so you got to have communication. One of my biggest things is accountability through transparency. I want to be able to go to the parents and say, listen, here's an idea. We're fixing the budget. We're providing more resources. We want to extend public education to pre-K. Would you be interested? Do you have children that would qualify for this? If the answer is overwhelmingly yes, if the majority of folks are saying yes, and we have the ability to do it, then I think that takes care of itself. Because folks won't invest in a program that they don't see it happening. But if it's available, especially if it's pre-K and they go learn to socialize, learn how to use those building blocks, I think folks will do it. We just got to make sure that we're creating opportunity and space for it.
Okay,
So what made you transition from being the chief of staff for the Cook County Commissioner to running for the elected school board? Essentially, why are you running for the CPS school?
That's an excellent question. I'm running for y'all. I'm running because I'm a former CPS alum, and I got to see the best of Chicago Public School. I went to Clisso Elementary from kindergarten to 5th grade. I was a Montessori kid, so the Montessori kids are the kids that get to learn through their hands. We played in the dirt. Like if we wanted to learn how a waterfall worked, we didn't like read it in the book. They took us to Waterfall Glen and let us climb around. And that was instrumental to my whole educational experience. Like that opened up so many doors for me because I am a very tactile learner. And then I went to Ogden for pre-IB. I was in an international baccalaureate program at Ogden. And this is back when only 2 middle schools had the pre-IB program. It was Ogden and Little Lincoln. And then after that, I tested into Lincoln Park's IB program. And at the time I went to school, Lincoln Park was the only school that had the full IB program. And that's International Baccalaureate Program. So I got to see the best of CPS. I mean, I was in choir all throughout high school until my voice changed and now I can't sing anymore. Look, let me go ahead and dead that expectation now. I went from singing as a tenor one to sounding like Jadakiss. So I no longer do that, but I look at that and in my own household, my brothers and sisters didn't get those opportunities. My brothers and sisters had to attend local neighborhood schools who were missing some of the things that I took for granted because it was just what I was used to. And so now, as the chief of staff, as general counsel, I work with students all over the city of Chicago. I work with students all throughout my county district, which is an all-city district that goes from Hyde Park and the lakefront all the way through just a little bit north of where we're sitting now. And so I see the tale of what they say, 2 cities, but actually it's like the tale of 5 or 6, depending on which neighborhood you're in.
Right.
And I know that if we don't have independent, competent, qualified candidates on this board, and I stress independent, qualified, and competent, because you want somebody that's responsible to you and not responsible for somebody cutting a check. If we don't have that, then CPS is going to continue to suffer. I already told y'all that they projected we're going to be in a $500 million or more deficit for the next 5 years. So we need folks with the skill set that I possess to get on this board and make sure we point the ship in the right direction. That's what I want to do. And it's unpaid. So I'm doing this purely out of the love for the students and love for my city, because I don't know about y'all, but when you go travel anywhere in the world and you bump into another Chicagoan, they ask you the same 3 questions. Where are you from? What side of the city? What high school did you go to? It's the same 3 questions. I don't care if I'm in the middle of Africa somewhere, if I bump into another Chicagoan, we could be in Japan, and they be like, oh man, what high school did you go to? So I want to make sure that when you get asked that question, because y'all all gonna travel internationally, when you get asked that question, you're gonna be able to proudly say a CPS school, and that school prepared you to be an international global citizen.
Absolutely. I say that something. I went to Morgan Park, so I get that all the time. Like, oh, you went to MP? I'm like, yeah. But like we said, experiencing the best of CPS, like that's my same hope for you all as well. Like I was in CPS when we had so many extracurricular activities, we had so many opportunities, and I think that's why this board is so important, because we are now in a dire time for reinstating a lot of, if not more, innovative opportunities for students to thrive and to learn and succeed. Like I feel like we've heard a long history of CPS being one of the worst school districts in the nation. And it's time that Chicago gets on top of that list.
Yes.
Okay, it's time.
We definitely gotta change the narrative.
Absolutely.
Because I've never met a group of people in my life like Chicago. We love our city.
Yes.
Other
Yes.
folks, and look, I'll even go so far as I got a lot of friends and family from New York, but there's always a New York, Chicago debate. But I always tell them, New Yorkers, y'all city is technically big, but y'all change on New York depending on the season. I've never met a Chicagoan. I don't care if they move out of Chicago.
Yeah.
They gonna say with their chest that they're from Chicago.
Yeah.
So the same pride we feel in our hometown, I want us to have that same pride in our public school system and do something about it. I don't want to just say I went to Lincoln Park. I want to be able to say I went to Lincoln Park, graduated, came back, and made CPS better for y'all.
Awesome.
All right, so this is our parent tip segment, right? So in each episode, even though this is our first, we're gonna ask for our guests to give one practical piece of advice that you would give to parents.
One practical piece of advice I give to parents. Be active in whatever your local school council, whatever your local school is doing. Be active and invest your time. A lot of people can write checks and throw money in things, but invest your time, because those students will be what they can see. They see their teachers every day, they see their peers every day, but if they see the community every day showing up and everything that they do, you know, some parents have certain jobs, professions, things like that, that students may not even be aware of. So if you are actively involved as a parent with your local school, with the school that your children attend, you have no idea the positive impact that you're making. And again, I don't have any kids either. I'm everybody's fun uncle. I'm the funky. But as a youth coach, as a mentor, as somebody who pours into the youth on a daily basis. Hey, look, after this election, win, lose, or draw, hoping I win. Go vote. Win, lose, or draw, I'm still coaching youth basketball, and I'm gonna have my fighting 5th graders, and we're gonna be out there scratching and clawing trying to win. But the most impactful part of that isn't us winning or losing in the game. It's the time I spend helping mold those kids and helping them, watching them grow from when I first get them and they barely know what they're doing to by the time they do the season, they've grown so much.
Yeah.
So parents, get involved.
Parents get engaged.
Your vote matters.
But no,
Parents engaged.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah,
that is literally why we are here, right? Is to really get parents engaged. Like, not education is obviously important, because as you all know, your children are in school more hours than they're at home, right? So let's make schools a place where children want to be.
Yes.
Okay. So as we start to wrap, what's next for you? Do you have any upcoming events or opportunities you'd like to share?
I don't have any upcoming events. What I'm doing for these next, less than 3 weeks heading into the election, I'm out there trying to door knock the neighborhood as much as I can, meet with as many students, parents, teachers, voters in the district. Again, I can't stress this enough. I am the only independent, truly independent candidate. So no, I don't have any special interest group throwing a bunch of money behind my campaign for social media, for mail, and all that stuff. So the best way for me to be successful is to do the way democracy is supposed to be done, which is getting out there in front of the people. So you all will catch me out knocking doors with my volunteers, which consists mainly of my family and friends. And if you out there volunteering, or you out there, you see us volunteering, see us knocking doors, and you would like to volunteer, I'm taking all volunteers. I got shirts in the car that say Team Lamont. You want one? Hey, all you gotta do is come knock doors a couple times with me, and I'll get you one.
Get one.
Come knock doors. Look,
Good.
that's my solicitation. Look, come. They gray with blue. They back down.
They all got on great goodness.
Well, I'll say y'all next episode, y'all might have new hosts because they're gonna be out here knocking doors.
Wait, did y'all just peek like we all got on like gray and blue?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Y'all got the memo for the campaign.
Yeah.
well, it was a parent engaged thing today.
Okay.
You know,
You got me a line on, just saying,
Yeah.
it's meant to be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. But before we wrap, we obviously just want to encourage the community to get involved. November 5th, get out and vote. I cannot stress this enough. We are voting for the president, but you're also voting for this new and historic elected school board, okay? It is important that you get to know the candidates, you get to know their passions, you get to know their values, you get to know what policies and programs they are looking to implement if elected to the board, right? It's really important for you as a parent, as a community member, to understand the future of our children, because the future of our children is the future of our city.
You can actually follow Lamont's campaign and find out more about Lamont's campaign race by visiting his website, LamontRaymondWilliams.wordpress.com, or follow Lamont on social media at LRW4CPS9.
And don't forget to subscribe to Parents Engagement Podcast for more conversations on education, parenting, and community.
Well, that is a wrap for our episode today. Thank you so much,
Thank you all for having
Lamont,
me.
for being here. Thank you so much to my amazing guest host today. I just want to say, parents, caregivers, community members, we hope you feel inspired to get out and vote. We hope you feel inspired to get engaged. You are your child's greatest advocate. Stay engaged, stay empowered, and let your voice be heard. Thank you for listening.
See you next time.
Thank you.